The most lethal words in a relationship is not, "I hate you," but "you are mine." And sometimes, the person who says he cannot live without you is really saying he has already imagined a world where you do not live at all. Carol Maltesi thought she was changing her life. She wasn't running from poverty. She wasn't running from scandal. She wasn't running from who she had become. If anything, Carol had done what countless people dream of doing. She had taken a desperate moment, the kind of moment that crushes most people, and turned it into independence. But fate has a cruel sense of humor. It sometimes lets you build a door just so someone else can lock it from the outside. Every case we cover takes hours of research and fact-checking, because these were real people, not just headlines. If you value respectful, detailed true crime content, hit like and subscribe so this case can reach more viewers. And before we continue, comment where you're watching from. I always like seeing how far this community reaches. By the beginning of 2022, Carol Maltesi was known to many people by another name, Charlotte Angie. To her fans, she was a rising adult performer with an unusually warm presence. To her friends, she was generous, spontaneous, and trusting. To her family, she was still Carol, a daughter, a mother, a woman trying to arrange the scattered pieces of her life into something that finally felt stable. And to one man, she was an obsession. That is where this story begins. Not with the murder, not with the garbage bags on the side of a mountain road, not with the tattoos that would later speak for a body whose face could no longer speak for itself. It begins with the small, ordinary decisions that look harmless in the moment. A message on Instagram, a neighbor moving into the same building, a camera turned on, a custom request from an anonymous fan, and then silence. Carol was born in Sesto Calende in northern Italy in 1995. She had Italian and Dutch roots, and like many young women trying to make a life for themselves, she worked different jobs before ever becoming known online. For years, she took on ordinary work, jobs that paid the bills, jobs that kept her going, jobs that disappeared when the world shut down. Then came the pandemic. Lockdown swallowed entire industries. People lost routines, income plans, and in some cases, their sense of who they were supposed to be. For Carol, the economic pressure was real. She had a son who lived with his father, and she wanted the kind of financial freedom that could give her more control over her future. So in 2021, like many others during that strange, lonely period, she opened an OnlyFans account. OnlyFans had become one of the pandemic's strangest gold rushes. To outsiders, it looked like easy money. Post content, gain subscribers, collect payments. But that fantasy was mostly a mirage. The vast majority of creators made little. A tiny fraction made enough to change their lives. Less than 1% truly broke through. Carol was one of the rare exceptions. Under the stage name Charlotte Angie, she quickly gained attention. What began as more casual content developed into polished adult productions. She collaborated with others in the industry. Her online following grew. Her earnings grew. And for the first time in years, she seemed to have a real chance at independence. There is a dark irony here, the kind that true crime always seems to leave behind like fingerprints. The platform that gave Carol freedom also gave someone else a window into her life. And windows, if watched long enough, can become doors. By late 2021, Carol had begun planning a move to Verona. This was not random. Her son lived in that area with his father, and Carol wanted to be closer to him. Friends and relatives knew this mattered deeply to her. She was not just planning a change of address. She was planning a change of life. A mother moving closer to her child should not be a dangerous act. But to an obsessive person, someone else's independence can feel like betrayal. Around this time, Carol's relationship with David Fontana had become complicated. Fontana was older than her by about 17 years. He worked at a bank, but he also presented himself publicly as a food blogger, a man with tastes, hobbies, an online persona of his own. He had first contacted Carol through Instagram in 2020 before she entered adult work. Their relationship was described as on and off, never simple, never entirely clean. But what happened next was one of those warning signs that can look almost romantic until history stains it red. Fontana moved into the same area as Carol, then into the same apartment building. A man who begins as a follower becomes a lover becomes a neighbor becomes a shadow. And shadows do not ask permission to stay. Fontana also became involved in Carol's adult content work. He helped film some scenes. He appeared in some content himself. In other words, he was not merely watching from outside her new career. He was inside it. He knew how it worked. He knew what her subscribers requested. He knew how custom content was arranged. He knew the rhythms of her online life. That knowledge would later become a weapon. Near the end of 2021, Carol's OnlyFans account began receiving custom content requests from an anonymous user. The username was reportedly Tombeau the Femme, a phrase with a crude meaning, something like womanizer in French. Anonymous paying users were nothing unusual on the platform. Many subscribers hide behind fake names, empty profiles, and fantasy identities. That is part of the system, but these requests were different. They were harsher, more extreme, more controlling. Carol was an adult performer, yes, but adult performers still have boundaries. A camera does not cancel consent. A payment does not erase risk. And a custom request can be rejected just like any other demand. Still, one request in early January 2022 stood out. It involved Carol restraining herself and wearing a hood framed as part of a scene. It was strange, but on a platform built around custom fantasies, strange does not always look dangerous. That is the frightening part. The predator did not need to break into her home that day. He simply hid behind the rules of the business she already understood. The trap came disguised as work. And the most efficient traps are the ones victims help assemble because they do not know they are traps. David Fontana offered to help her film it. Imagine that moment. A camera set up, a familiar man in the room, a custom request from someone who seemed to be just another subscriber. Carol preparing for content, expecting performance, not violence, expecting a scene, not an ending. According to investigators and court reporting, the anonymous user making those requests was Fontana himself. He had allegedly used the platform to create a scenario where Carol would be vulnerable, not by dragging her into a dark alley, not by forcing his way through a window, but by manipulating her professional routine. That is the kind of detail that makes this case uniquely chilling. It was not merely murder. It was murder wearing the mask of customer service. At some point during the filming, the scene stopped being fiction. Fontana attacked Carol. The reports describe a brutal killing inside her home in Riscaldana, near Milan, in January 2022. The exact details are disturbing, and the horror does not need decoration. What matters is this. Carol Maltesi, 26 years old, mother, daughter, performer, woman planning a future near her son, was killed by someone she knew intimately. There is an old saying, the knife you never see is usually held by someone close enough to hug you. After the murder, most killers panic. Fontana did something colder. He stayed. He concealed Carol's death. He kept her body hidden. He reportedly stored her remains in a freezer. And then he began performing the role of Carol online, answering messages, maintaining the illusion that she was alive. A dead woman's phone became a puppet. For weeks, Carol's family and friends received texts that appeared to come from her. Fans and acquaintances were reassured. Her social media presence slowed but did not vanish in a way that immediately screamed murder. Messages explained away her absence. She was busy. She was changing plans. She was moving. She was leaving adult work. She was going to Dubai. It is almost grotesque how often killers choose distance as an alibi, a faraway city, a new life, a sudden change of heart. Somewhere glamorous enough to sound plausible but distant enough that nobody can easily check. Carol had planned to move to Verona, closer to her son, but the messages claimed something else. She had changed her mind, they said. She was going abroad. She was stepping away from her old life. She did not want calls. She preferred text. And with every message, the lie grew another layer of skin. Her family became uneasy. Text messages were not enough. Something felt wrong. Carol's behavior had shifted too sharply. She was not answering calls. She was not video calling. Her son's father became especially suspicious when Carol did not video call their child on his birthday. That detail is devastating because it is so ordinary. True crime often turns on little human habits. A mother who always calls, a friend who always uses emojis, a daughter who never goes silent for long. Killers can imitate words, but they struggle to imitate love. The father of Carol's son knew something was wrong because absence has a smell. You may not be able to prove it, but you can sense it. Meanwhile, Fontana continued the deception. He was not simply hiding evidence. He was inhabiting her digital life. And in the modern world, that can be enough to delay death itself. If the account replies, if WhatsApp shows activity, if messages arrive with familiar phrasing, people hesitate. They doubt their instincts. They tell themselves maybe she is stressed, maybe she needs space, maybe she really is starting over. The internet has given murderers a new kind of ghost costume. In older times, a missing person vanished completely. In the digital age, they can keep typing after they are dead, so long as someone else has the password. For nearly 2 months, the illusion held. But bodies do not disappear just because phones keep buzzing. On March 20, 2022, Fontana drove into the mountains of northern Italy. He went near the area of Paline di Borno in the province of Brescia. There, along a mountain road, he disposed of garbage bags containing Carol's remains. A final insult after a final betrayal. He had taken her life, then her voice, then her identity, and now he tried to discard her like household waste. But the dead have a cruel patience. They wait quietly until the living make mistakes. The next day, a man driving along that road noticed garbage bags scattered nearby. In some areas, illegal dumping was not unheard of. People abandon trash in remote places and keep driving because shame weighs less than responsibility. But something about these bags looked wrong. The man stopped. He approached, and then he saw what no person expects to see when investigating roadside trash, part of a human body. Police were called. The mountain road became a crime scene. Investigators discovered a body that had been dismembered and partially burned. The face was unrecognizable. Whoever had done this wanted identification to be difficult. But killers often forget that bodies remember, scars remember, tattoos remember, bones remember. Skin, even damaged, can carry the last testimony of a life. Carol had distinctive tattoos, and those tattoos became the key. At first, authorities had an unidentified victim. A woman, violently killed, discarded in bags, her face destroyed. It was the kind of case where the first question is not who killed her, but who is she? Without a name, justice has no address. Then a journalist entered the story. Andrea Tortelli, editor of the local online newspaper BS News, received information about the unidentified body. He managed to obtain images of the tattoos and began searching. This is one of the stranger aspects of the case. The identification did not begin with a massive cinematic police breakthrough, but with a journalist, tips, and the internet doing what the internet does best, finding patterns. Eventually, through online searching and help from others, Tortelli connected the tattoos to Charlotte Angie, the adult performer, Carol Maltesi. But here is where the story gets even more unsettling. Tortelli found a WhatsApp number associated with Carol and messaged it, and someone replied, "Just pause on that. A journalist is investigating whether an unidentified mutilated body belongs to a missing woman." He messages that woman's number, and the number answers. The reply claimed Carol was alive. If this were fiction, it would feel too obvious, too theatrical, too much like a villain leaning into the camera. But real killers are often not masterminds. They are gamblers. They bet that confusion will buy them time. Tortelli was not convinced. He asked for a voice message. A voice message arrived. It was silent. No voice. No proof. Just empty audio, the digital equivalent of a corpse pretending to breathe. That silence may be one of the most haunting details in the entire case, because it says everything. A living person can speak. A frightened person can whisper. An angry person can curse. But a dead woman's phone can only send silence when the man holding it cannot imitate her voice. Tortelli documented the exchange and passed information to investigators. He also published pieces about the identification effort while police continued their work. By then, the walls were beginning to close in. Carol's family knew something was wrong. Her son's father knew something was wrong. A journalist had connected the unidentified body to her stage persona. The phone meant to prove she was alive had instead produced a silent confession. And somewhere in the middle of all this was David Fontana, the neighbor, the former lover, the man who had helped film her content. The man who knew the anonymous custom request was not anonymous at all. The man who had watched Carol plan a future that did not include him at the center. That is one of the ugliest patterns in cases like this. The motive is often dressed up in dramatic words: passion, jealousy, heartbreak, emotional collapse. But underneath all that decoration is usually one simple belief. I cannot own you, I will erase you. It is not love. It is possession with better lighting. Love wants the other person alive even if they walk away. Possession would rather see them dead than free. Carol Maltesi's freedom had been hard-earned. She had survived unstable work, pandemic uncertainty, social judgment, and the risks of entering an industry where everyone claims to care about consent until money or obsession enters the room. She had built something profitable. She had choices. She had plans. And that may have been exactly what made her dangerous to him. A woman leaving is not supposed to be a death sentence. But in the mind of a controlling man, departure can look like theft. Her future becomes something he believes she has stolen from him. Her motherhood, her money, her independence, her body, her attention. Everything becomes part of a fantasy inventory he thinks he is entitled to keep. By late March 2022, investigators were closing in. They had the body. They had the tattoo identification. They had suspicious communications. They had a victim whose sudden move to Dubai made no sense. They had a former partner living frighteningly close to the center of the timeline. The illusion was cracking. And when a lie finally breaks, it does not break gently. It cuts everyone who touched it. On March 29, 2022, police arrested David Fontana. The man who had once entered Carol's life through a message now faced investigators for her murder. But the arrest was only the beginning of the horror becoming public. Because what emerged afterward was not just a story of a killing. It was a story of calculated impersonation, digital manipulation, and a murder method so disturbingly modern that it seemed designed for the age of paid intimacy. A custom request, a camera, a trusted man in the room, and a woman who thought she was filming content, not walking into the last scene of her life. Carol Maltesi had been turned into Charlotte Angie for the world. Then after her death, her killer tried to turn her into nothing at all. No face, no voice, no body, no truth. But he failed, because tattoos can speak, because silence can accuse, because a mother missing her child's birthday call can be louder than any scream. And because even in a world where identities can be faked, messages can be forged, and dead women can be made to reply, the truth has a nasty little habit of crawling out of the bags where monsters try to bury it. When David Fontana was arrested, the story did not become less disturbing. It became clearer. And clarity in a case like this is its own kind of horror, because at first, the murder of Carol Maltesi seemed like the work of a man in panic. A crime of passion, people might say, because society has always had a weakness for dressing violence in romantic clothing. But as investigators pieced together the timeline, The truth became colder than that. This was not a sudden argument that turned fatal. This was not a chaotic accident. This was a man building a cage and calling it a relationship. Fontana had not simply killed Carol. He had studied the shape of her life closely enough to know where to strike. He knew her work. He knew how her content was made. He knew that custom requests were normal in her world. He knew a strange demand from an anonymous subscriber would not automatically trigger alarm bells. And he knew that if he could lure her into vulnerability under the cover of filming, she might not realize the danger until it was already standing over her. The devil does not always arrive with horns. Sometimes he arrives with a tripod and says, "I'll help you record." After the killing, Fontana's behavior became a grotesque performance of control. For weeks, he used Carol's phone and accounts to impersonate her. He sent messages to her friends, family, and acquaintances. He created a false story that Carol was alive, distant, and simply choosing a new path. She was supposedly moving to Dubai. She was supposedly stepping away from adult work. She was supposedly too busy, too overwhelmed, too unavailable for calls. It was a convenient fiction. A foreign country makes absence believable. A career change explains silence. A woman in adult entertainment choosing privacy can be twisted into something that sounds plausible. And that is part of what makes this case so vicious. Fontana exploited not just Carol's trust, but the assumptions people make about women like her. He counted on people accepting distance from her. He counted on people believing she might want to disappear. He counted on the stigma around her work to create fog around her death. There is a cruel proverb for this kind of world. When society judges a woman while she is alive, it becomes easier for a killer to hide her when she is dead. But Carol was not disposable. She was not a stage name. She was not a profile. She was not an object that could be deleted when inconvenient. She was a mother, a daughter, a person with plans. And the people who loved her noticed the difference between Carol and the ghost wearing her phone. The messages did not feel right. The refusal to call did not feel right. The refusal to video call her son on his birthday did not feel right. That moment, small as it might seem, is one of the emotional turning points of the case. A killer may study a victim's words, habits, and schedule. He may learn passwords and imitate punctuation. He may even understand her work better than most outsiders ever could. But he cannot counterfeit a mother's love convincingly forever. Fontana could send texts. He could invent excuses. He could keep the illusion moving for a while, but he could not become Carol. The discovery of her remains near Palan di Borno ended his fantasy of control. He had tried to erase her face. He had tried to destroy her identity. He had tried to scatter her body away from the life she had lived. But the tattoos remained. Those tattoos became witnesses. Silent, damaged, but still telling the truth. It is one of the darkest ironies of the case. The body he tried to make anonymous still carried her signature. Once Andrea Tortelli connected those tattoos to Charlotte Angie, the story began to collapse in public. The journalist's decision to contact Carol's WhatsApp number produced one of the most chilling exchanges of the entire investigation. Whoever had the phone tried to insist she was alive, but when asked for a voice note, the response was silence. Not a cough, not a whisper, not a single word, just silence. There are messages that confess without saying anything. That silent audio was one of them. By the time Fontana was in custody, investigators had enough to bring the hidden story into the light. According to reports, he confessed to killing Carol, though the legal interpretations of his state of mind, planning, and motive would later become a bitter battleground in court. The alleged motive was jealousy and control. Carol wanted to move to Verona to be closer to her son. She was planning a future that did not revolve around Fontana. She had financial independence. She had professional momentum. She had choices. And to a possessive man, a woman's choices can look like an emergency. That is not love. That is ownership having a nervous breakdown. Fontana's obsession had grown from contact to intimacy to proximity to participation in her work to the final desire to control even the circumstances of her death. He did not just want Carol near him. He wanted to decide what she could do, where she could go, and who she could become. When he could no longer control the living woman, he controlled the dead one, her phone, her messages, her story, her body. It is hard to imagine a more complete violation. And yet the courtroom would find ways to make the horror feel even uglier. Fontana was charged with aggravated voluntary homicide and the destruction and concealment of a corpse. The facts were monstrous, but the legal process turned into something that enraged many people across Italy. At trial, Fontana was found guilty and sentenced to 30 years in prison. 30 years. For many observers, it was not enough. The issue was not only the number, it was the reasoning. The court did not initially impose a life sentence, and the explanation sparked outrage. Judges reportedly found that certain aggravating factors, including premeditation, were not proven to the level required for a harsher penalty. There were also statements interpreted by critics as giving weight to Fontana's emotional condition and to the dynamics of his relationship with Carol. To many people, it sounded like the court was searching through Carol's life for reasons to make his violence more understandable. That is the second death victims often suffer, first at the hands of the killer, then in the language people use afterward. Critics argued that the murder showed clear planning. The anonymous OnlyFans account, the extreme custom request, the setup involving restraints and a hood, the impersonation afterward, the concealment of the body, the attempt to prevent identification. To them, this did not look like a man overwhelmed in a sudden emotional storm. It looked like a storm that had checked the weather forecast, packed supplies, and chosen a route. And then there was the matter of Carol's profession. Whenever a woman in adult entertainment is harmed, there is a predictable ugliness that crawls out of the walls. People ask why she did that work, why she trusted that person, why she allowed filming, why she had complicated relationships, why she did not see the danger, why she did not leave sooner. The questions multiply until the victim is quietly placed on trial beside the accused. But none of those questions change the only question that matters. Who chose violence? Not Carol. Fontana did. Carol's work did not kill her. Her independence did not kill her. Her decision to move did not kill her. Her trust did not kill her. A man killed her. Everything else is fog. The public backlash was intense because many saw the sentence as part of a larger pattern in femicide cases, where the killer's emotions are examined with almost scholarly tenderness, while the victim's terror is treated as background information. Words like jealousy, passion, and desperation have a strange way of softening murder when the victim is a woman and the killer once claimed to love her. But jealousy is not a motive that deserves sympathy. Jealousy is often the polite name given to entitlement after it has drawn blood. Carol's case became a symbol not only because of its brutality, but because it exposed something deeply modern and deeply ancient at the same time. The modern part was the platform, the custom content, the digital impersonation, the way a person's online presence could be used like a mask after death. The ancient part was the motive. A woman tried to leave, and a man decided he would rather destroy her than lose control. Technology changed the tools. It did not change the monster. As the case moved through appeals, the question of Fontana's final sentence continued to shift. At different stages, higher courts and appeal proceedings reconsidered whether the aggravating factors supported a life sentence or a lesser prison term. Reports described life sentence rulings being imposed and overturned as the legal process continued, leaving the final punishment uncertain for a long period. But no appeal could change what happened in that apartment. No judge's wording could bring Carol back. No legal argument could make a silent voice note speak. And no sentence, whether 30 years or life, could erase the fact that a child lost his mother because a grown man mistook rejection for annihilation. That child is one of the quiet tragedies at the center of the case. True crime often focuses on the killer, the method, the courtroom, the shocking details. But behind every headline are people sentenced to grief without ever committing a crime. Carol's son will grow up with a wound he did not choose, caused by a man who believed his own feelings mattered more than another person's life. That is the inheritance murder leaves behind. Not just a grave, a crater. Carol's family also had to endure the grotesque experience of communicating with someone they thought was her after she was already dead. Think about that for a moment. Every message they replayed in their minds afterward became contaminated. Every excuse, every reassurance. Every moment they wondered whether they should push harder. The killer did not just steal Carol from them. He stole the final weeks in which they might have searched for her sooner. He turned their hope into a weapon against them. That is a special kind of cruelty, to make people miss someone while pretending she is still there. The case also forced attention onto the risks faced by online adult creators. OnlyFans is often presented as safer than traditional adult entertainment because creators can work independently, control their content, and avoid some of the exploitative structures of the old industry. In many ways, that can be true, but Carol's murder revealed a different danger, the intimacy of access. Subscribers are not always distant viewers. Some become regular contacts. Some request custom material. Some learn routines. Some develop fantasies that are not limited to the screen. And when money, loneliness, entitlement, and obsession mix together, the result can become poisonous. This does not mean creators are responsible for the danger. It means the danger adapts. A locked door is useful until someone convinces you to open it for work. Carol's killer was not a random fan from the internet, but he understood the mechanics of the platform well enough to exploit them. That is what made the OnlyFans element so haunting. It was not just a backdrop. It was part of the trap. A custom request was allegedly used to place Carol in a vulnerable position, with the killer hiding behind the anonymity and normalcy of paid fantasy. That single fact turns the case into something uniquely disturbing, because online platforms are built on the illusion of control. You choose what to post. You choose what to sell. You choose what to answer. You choose how close to let people come. But the screen can create a false sense of distance. It can make danger feel manageable, contained, transactional. Then one day the transaction has a pulse. One day the username is someone you know. One day the fantasy is not fantasy at all. Carol's story also challenges the lazy way people talk about adult performers. Some observers treat the work as if it makes violence inevitable, as if harm is an occupational hazard that society can shrug at. But that is morally bankrupt. No job makes a person less human. No stage name cancels a birth name. No sexual content turns murder into a footnote. Charlotte Angie was a persona. Carol Maltesi was the woman behind it, and she deserved to live. She deserved to move to Verona. She deserved to be closer to her son. She deserved to leave adult work if she wanted to. She deserved to continue it if she wanted to. She deserved ordinary things: phone calls, birthdays, plans, mornings, bad coffee, good news, boring errands, future memories. The tragedy is that her killer saw her future as an insult. That is often the final warning sign in controlling relationships. Not violence at first, not threats at first. Sometimes it begins with discomfort whenever you grow, resentment when you become independent, anger when you make plans. A person who claims to love you but quietly roots against your freedom is not a partner. He is a guard waiting for the prison to be finished. Carol may not have known how dangerous Fontana had become. Most victims do not. The people closest to danger often have the hardest time seeing its full shape because it arrives gradually. A message, a favor, a move nearby. A role in your work, a dependence, an argument, an apology, a strange request, a camera. The road to horror is rarely marked with warning signs. It is paved with things that seemed normal yesterday. When people discuss Carol Maltesi now, many remember the brutality of her death. The freezer, the bags, the burned face, the tattoos, the silent message. Those details are unforgettable, and perhaps they should be. Some crimes deserve to haunt the public memory because forgetting them would be another form of disrespect. But Carol should not be remembered only by what was done to her. That is the final theft killer's attempt. They tried to reduce a full human life into the worst thing that ever happened to it. Carol was more than a victim. She was ambitious. She was searching. She was flawed in the way all real people are flawed. She was brave enough to reinvent herself during a pandemic that left millions frightened and financially cornered. She built an audience in an unforgiving industry. She tried to use that success to create a better life. She wanted to be near her child. Her death was horrific because her life mattered, and perhaps that is the line worth holding on to. The killer wanted the world to see nothing. No face, no name, no truth, just bags on a mountain road. Instead, the world learned her name, Carol Maltesi, the woman behind Charlotte Angie, the mother who missed a birthday call not because she forgot, but because someone had stolen her voice, the performer whose tattoos identified her when her killer tried to erase her, the victim whose case exposed how obsession can weaponize intimacy, how digital lives can be puppeteered after death, and how society still struggles to speak about murdered women without putting them on trial. There is a saying that fits this case too well: ghosts are not always the dead. Sometimes ghosts are the truths the living refuse to face. The truth here is simple. Carol did not vanish. She was taken. She did not choose silence. She was silenced. She did not abandon her son, her family, or her life. A man who could not tolerate her freedom ended it. And that is why this case lingers, not only because of the brutality, but because of the familiarity beneath it. Many people know someone like Fontana in smaller forms, the person who calls control concern, the person who calls jealousy love, the person who treats boundaries like insults, the person who believes access is ownership. Most never become murderers, but the seed is the same. And when that seed grows in the dark, it can produce something monstrous. Carol's final weeks were hidden behind a digital mask, but the mask eventually slipped. The body was found. The tattoos spoke. The journalist questioned. The family doubted. The police closed in. The man who tried to write the ending was forced to face the fact that he was not the author of the truth, because truth is stubborn. It waits in phones. It waits in timelines. It waits in the instincts of people who know something is wrong. It waits on mountain roads, inside garbage bags, beneath the killer's arrogance. And sooner or later, it opens its eyes. Carol Maltesi's story is not just a warning about OnlyFans. It is not just a warning about adult work. It is not even just a warning about online obsession. It is a warning about possession disguised as love, about the danger of people who cannot accept that another human being belongs only to themselves, about how the most lethal words in a relationship may not be, "I hate you," but "you are mine." Because the most dangerous prisons have no bars, the most silent cries have no sound. And sometimes, the person who says he cannot live without you is really saying he has already imagined a world where you do not live at all.